Hello and welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful back in the studio today with yet another fabric printing video. I'm hoping this will be the last one I need because I think I finally have the product that is going to meet all my needs. So if you're just joining me for the very first time, welcome. I hope if you like this video, you'll give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. Click on the bell if you want notifications when I post another video. And just sit back and enjoy. This one will be one you want to save, I think. So I have printed on fabric before and love printing on fabric for all sorts of things. But the one problem is I'm using an inkjet printer, which means that my ink is going to bleed and run all over my project and it's not going to be waterproof. So in a previous video, I had found a product that I'm still going to use for certain things, but it was the Scotchgard Fabric Craft Water Shield. Now this worked great for something that was already finished, like this fabric book cover where I had printed using my inkjet printer this cover, but it was not protected. If I spilled water on it or something like that, it was going to leave a mark. So I used this several coats and it works to kind of make it water repellent. I had done the same thing with this one and I'm going to show you again. I had sprayed this several times and then I'm going to just spritz it with some water just to show you what my result was. So you can kind of see, if I get in here, let's see. You can see where the water has beaded up on my fabric. So it's kind of soaking in there a little bit now. Let me get a clean paper towel and see if I'm going to get any kind of bleeding still. So a tiny little spot there, but pretty much it's at least not making a mess all over my fabric. So this worked for things that maybe you've already completed and you just need to protect it. I think this is a product that I can still use. So when I did the video, I did ask people to leave comments if they knew a better thing to use, and thank you to Diamond in the Rough for pointing out the product that's been around probably more than 20 years. I was talking to my sister about it and she said, oh yeah, I used that 20 years ago to make a photo quilt. So quilters knew about this, but I did not know about this. So it's just a huge game changer and I'm going to show you how wonderfully it works. So all of these fabrics I printed with my inkjet printer. This was an old newspaper that I have scanned that will end up in a kit that at some point of vintage, text or something like that I'll work on. This was again printed, same one, different color fabric. This is some vintage handkerchiefs that I had that I scanned and then made a little collage. So I wanted to try one with super bright colors. And then this is from a digital kit that I had purchased that's just a bunch of different labels. So watch what happens. These are all have been treated already. And I'm just gonna put, this is just some plain water. And I'm just using a little recycled plastic lid. And this one's already been done. I'm just gonna show you what happens. Now if you had printed with an inkjet printer, this ink would just be running all over the place. And look at that, it's just beautiful. So you can print your own fabric and have it be not waterproof, but it won't bleed or run or anything, and now you can use it in your projects. So I'm gonna hang that one out of my way. And I'm gonna show you what I used. I'm gonna kind of go over the whole process again, printing on fabric, in case you haven't done it before and this is the first video you're watching. So this product that I'm gonna use will only work on 100% cotton or silk. So 100%, not a blend or anything like that. So this is just a piece. You can see it's just roughly torn to the size I want. I have a couple pieces here. So you want to tear or cut your fabric larger than you want to print, because we're going to trim some off. When we treat this fabric, because it's 100% cotton, it's going to shrink up a little bit. So you can either wash all your fabric ahead of time before you even tear it up or cut it up. But that's kind of one extra step you don't need to do because you're going to be getting it wet again and drying it, so it'll shrink then. So just cut it a little larger so you'll have some room for it to shrink. So I have my 2 pieces cut here just to play with. And so the first step that I need to do, the first product is Bubble Jet 2000. So I'm going to go get another little flat pan since I've already put water in that one. Okay, so I have just another little recycled tray. So you want to use rubber gloves and work in a well-ventilated area. This didn't have any fragrance. I didn't smell anything, but you still always want to work in a ventilated area. So you're going to shake it up, make sure your surface is protected. And then I'm just going to put as much as I think I want to use in this little tray. I won't put too much. I can always add more. You don't want to recycle this and put it back in the bottle. So I'm just going to put a little bit that I think will work for my couple of pieces of fabric. And then you're just going to put it in here and soak it. And this is probably not enough for 2. So I'm just going to maybe start with 1. And I kind of just get it all wet. Make sure it's gotten through the whole piece of fabric. And then it says to let it sit for 5 minutes, just so it can kind of soak in and do its thing. So I have just this one piece. Now I can try to wring it out and see if I have enough to do the second piece. So I kind of just did a bunch at a time and did this and just kept adding so that I don't waste any of my material. So I'm just gonna get that all wet. And then above because I'm recording, I have a gear glide that's holding my camera. And so I have some clothespins on a line up here. I'm just gonna hang that just to sit for 5 minutes, and I'll see if I can get enough out of this other one. And then what you wanna do is just let this dry. So you can let it dry naturally, or you can just, like I said, do a few of these and then pop them in the dryer. It won't take very long because, you know, they're just little small pieces. So you're gonna let this sit for 5 minutes and then throw it in the dryer or hang it outside or just in your studio. And this one didn't quite get everywhere. So obviously you can pour more in and then just, you know, keep taking it up. Okay, so those are saturated, and I'm gonna imagine that those are dry, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so I have my fabric here. It's almost dry. I'm gonna finish drying it with my hot iron. I need to get the wrinkles out anyway. So I have my 2 pieces, and then I went ahead and threw this into the dryer. It's still a little damp, but you can see it didn't bleed at all. And this is after, you know, treating it the first time and then getting it wet again. So I'm gonna just put my hot iron on this, see if I can get it dry. So I've cut it larger than I need just to make it easier. And then the instructions right on the bottle tell you to use freezer paper. Now, if you watched my last video, I've tried freezer paper a couple times. It sticks just fine, but I think it's a little floppy to put into my printer using the rear paper feeder, which is what I like to do for fabric. So I still like my sticker paper. And so that's what I'm going to use. You can use freezer paper, sticker paper, whatever you want. The one I have used and I show is Online Labels, because I can buy this in 100 sheets and it has a solid back that's not cut on the back. So I'll put a link down below. That's the one I like to use. And I also like to use it because you can reuse these 4, 5, 6 times. So I'm just going to peel off the backing, which I'm going to save. I reuse those, and then this is kind of hard to do because I have gloves on still, but I'm just going to try to make a little straight along with the grain of the fabric so that if I want to tear, my design lines up with my tears. And so I'm just going to put that down. And you can see, because I ironed my fabric, I don't even have any wrinkles. If I needed to, I can just touch that with the iron again and get that really stuck down and get rid of any kind of wrinkles. okay? And then what I want to do is flip it over, and I want to trim all that excess fabric off. And I'm going to use my cutting side because I found this was easier. If you've watched my other videos, you know that I prepare a lot of these ahead of time, which means I had a clamshell with probably close to a dozen of these all ready to go. And then I found this product. So I had to tear them all off my sticker paper. I did try one leaving it on the sticker paper and treating the fabric after the fact. It worked okay, but I did have a slight little bit of bleed. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and take them all off and start all over, which meant my fabric shrunk a little bit and I had to trim the edges again. But that's fine. It's going to work in my printer just fine. I just trimmed off a little bit. So I'm just using my rotary cutter. You can use scissors. That's what I used to do. But when I had to trim all of those a second time, I decided this was much easier. So I'm just using a rotary cutter and a ruler on my cutting mat. And then I will get all the sides perfectly straight, no little strings falling off. And this is just much faster. And I didn't get this one very straight on my fabric, but it will work. Okay, so I have my piece cut. I don't have any little strings, and now I can run it through my printer. So I am going to put this in and print it up, and we'll do the next step. Okay, that's fresh off the printer, and you can see I printed the same design as this one. This one's in color, and this one's more of a black and white sepia sort of color. So that way I'll have a kind of variety of labels. So when I print these, I like to print, like I said, from my rear paper feeder. It's just easier than loading a bunch in the tray. I'm using an Epson 8500, the Ecotank printer, but I have another Epson, an old one that's not an Ecotank, and I printed on fabric just like this, same kind of thing. So I use the rear paper feeder, plain paper setting, but then I set it on fine, partly because with my printers, if I'm not using them frequently and I don't want to clean the print heads and all that, sometimes, you know, you'll get inconsistent ink flow and you'll get some stripes down your paper. That's usually because you're not using the paper setting that matches the paper you're using, and there's not a fabric setting, at least not that I'm aware of. So you're kind of faking out the machine. I found that if I do get little streaks, if I just bump up the fine quality versus normal quality, and that's not the highest on mine. There's actually a higher quality than that. So I kind of do the in between normal and the highest just to make sure I don't get any kind of striping on my fabric. So the next thing I need to do is I need to let this just sit for 30 minutes. So I'm not gonna, wait while we're on camera here. So I have another one prepared to go with the next step, but you're gonna let this sit for 30 minutes and then do the next step. Okay, so for the last step, I know it sounds like a lot, but it's really not. I have my tray of just clean water again. And they recommend on the instructions, so if you just bought this product, you can actually not have the next product. It just says, let the treated fabric set for 30 minutes and then hand wash the fabric with a mild detergent or machine wash in cold water on delicate cycle. When washing by hand, please read additional information on the back of the bottle. For best results, wash with bubble jet rinse. So that's what I'm gonna do. So it kind of tells you if you're going to, wash it by hand, what you want to do. So I'm going to use the product that they recommended, and that is the bubble jet rinse. So basically it's just a mild detergent. This one says add 4 cupfuls or 2 ounces for the rinse to 1 gallon of water. Since I'm just using a little bit of water, I'm just going to kind of pour in a splash of this. And then this is one of my ones that I printed. It's still on my sticker sheet because I was letting it dry for the half hour, which was actually yesterday. So I'm just going to pull this off. And I probably don't need to wear gloves for this portion because this is just a mild detergent. But I still have them on, so I'm going to peel this off. And now I can reuse this again, so I still have this sheet that I can stick on here. And then I'll reuse that one. So this one you can see is not a ton of ink. Let me put I'm just gonna put a little bit of, just the tiniest little bit. So you can see it's just kind of bubbling a little bit. It's just a little detergent. And then we're gonna hope this worked. So I'm imagining this is the first time I'm putting this back in water after printing it. So you can imagine this would be filling up with bleeding ink if I had not treated this. So I'm just giving it a good little wash just so you can see that it's working. And then I would just, and you can see it, no ink is rinsing out of that. And then I can rinse this and let it dry, and then I'm finished. So this was just the thing I've been wondering about. I had looked for it on YouTube before. I guess I wasn't putting in the right kind of questions. How to keep my inkjet ink from bleeding on fabric. And so that had never popped up. So again, thank you to Diamond in the Rough for showing me that there was a product out there all along. So now I'll just, rinse this one out and let it dry. So that is my share for today. I hope that you enjoyed this tip because it's been something that I've been looking for a long time. And now I'll be able to do all sorts of things using fabrics and not worrying about them bleeding onto my project and getting to be a mess. So have a great rest of your day. Now go make something. Bye.